Ethan and Sarah had spent their childhoods learning to survive. Ethan, the product of an abusive household, had scars that weren't always visible. Sarah had grown up in foster care, shuffled between homes where love was conditional or non-existent. They met in their early 20s, drawn together by an unspoken understanding of pain and perseverance. For the first time, they felt safe with each other. Eager to escape the ghosts of their pasts, they moved to the big city, where new beginnings felt possible. Their small apartment was old and creaky, but to them, it was a palace. Ethan found work as a mechanic, while Sarah landed a job at a diner. Life wasn't easy, but it was theirs to build. They made promises, ones they fully intended to keep. Then, the unimaginable began. It started with the phone calls, static-filled silence from an unknown number at odd hours. Then, Sarah began seeing shadows move in their apartment, even when she was alone. Ethan dismissed it as stress and exhaustion, but doubt gnawed at him when he, too, began to feel watched. One evening, Sarah came home to find their apartment door ajar. Inside, the air felt heavy, wrong. She stepped cautiously inside, calling Ethan's name. No response. The walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them of her and Ethan, from different stages of their lives. Many were from moments they had never shared with each other, or anyone. There was even a picture of Ethan as a boy, standing in his abusive father's backyard, and a photo of Sarah as a child, clutching a worn teddy bear from one of her foster homes. More chillingly, some photos showed them together at points in their lives when they hadn't even met yet. They were in the same parks, walking the same streets, unknowingly crossing paths. A shiver ran through her. She staggered back, bumping into Ethan, who had just arrived. His face paled as he took in the display. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "No one should have these." A slow, deliberate knock sounded at the door. Ethan reached for the nearest object, a wrench he always carried in his work bag. Sarah gripped his arm, her breath shallow. He opened the door. No one was there. A note had been pinned to the frame with a rusty nail. The handwriting was jagged, erratic. "Did you think you could run?" Sarah's knees buckled. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. They spent the night in a motel, too afraid to return. But the terror followed. Their new jobs suddenly let them go without reason. Their landlord claimed they had never rented the apartment. Even their bank accounts showed no record of their existence. They had been erased. Ethan and Sarah were alone in a city that had swallowed them whole. That night, they sat in their car, parked at the edge of a desolate highway, staring at the endless black road ahead. They had run from their pasts, believing love could outshine the darkness. Now, they faced an enemy they couldn't name, one that knew them better than they knew themselves. Sarah turned to Ethan, her fingers lacing with his. "We still have each other." Ethan, his jaw tight, nodded. "That has to be enough." He turned the key in the ignition. They drove forward, into the unknown, together. As the car sped down the road, Sarah pulled out the note and turned it over. There was more writing on the back. "We will always find you." Moments later, Ethan glanced at the rearview mirror. A pair of headlights appeared behind them, growing closer with each passing second. Panic clawed at his chest as Sarah whispered, "They're coming." The car behind them didn't pass. It stayed just out of reach, shadowing them like a predator stalking its prey. Sarah clenched Ethan's hand. "We fight." Ethan took a deep breath and pressed harder on the gas. If they were going down, they would do it together, facing the darkness head. Then, a voice crackled over the car's radio, though they had never turned it on. "You were never meant to find each other," it said. "But now that you have, you possess something we need." Ethan and Sarah exchanged frantic glances. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, gripping the wheel. "Your parents knew," the voice continued. "They were part of something much bigger than you could imagine. And they left something behind, something hidden. And you too. You're the key. Sarah's breath hitched. Our parents. My parents died before I could remember them. Ethan's were involved. The voice interrupted. And now, you're in the way. The car behind them suddenly surged forward, ramming into their rear bumper. Ethan struggled to keep control of the wheel. Sarah clutched the dashboard. What do they think we have? Something they lost, Ethan growled. Something they'll kill for. Ahead, a fork in the road loomed. Hold on, Ethan said, swerving onto the narrower path. The pursuing car followed. The past had caught up with them. And now, they had to uncover the truth before it destroyed them both. The tires screeched as the car veered off the road, hitting gravel and hurtling toward the edge of a steep cliff. Sarah screamed as Ethan yanked the wheel, but it was too late. The car launched into the air, suspended for a brief moment before gravity took hold. But they never hit the ground. A blinding beam of light engulfed them, holding the car in place. The deafening hum vibrated through their bones, and suddenly, the vehicle was weightless, lifted higher and higher. The pursuing car skidded to a stop at the cliff's edge, its driver watching in horror as Ethan and Sarah disappeared into the sky. The aliens performed their procedure, extracting what had been implanted inside Ethan and Sarah long ago. The process was excruciating, yet neither of them screamed. They simply stared at each other, their hands reaching but never touching. Then, silence. A final whisper echoed in their minds before the darkness took them again. We will always find you. When they awoke, they were no longer together. Ethan gasped as he sat up on a park bench, the city buzzing around him, unaware of the impossibility of his return. The name Sarah hovered at the edge of his mind, but he couldn't grasp it. His heart ached, but he didn't know why. Sarah woke in a small rural town, the sun warm against her skin. She touched her temples, confusion clouding her mind. There was something missing, something important. She just didn't know what. The test had begun. Somewhere, the Watchers observed, waiting to see if two souls, who had once defied fate, could do it again.